Hi, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. Today's webinar features myself, Phil Liu, and this is organized by Test Ray. Maybe you could start off the webinar and welcome our guests.
Yeah, thank you, Phil. Welcome, everybody. My name is Karthik. I head the product marketing for Goldfinger Group and especially for TestRay. And today's webinar, we are going to talk about unlocking test orchestration in Jira for faster execution. With me is Phil Liu. He's the CEO and founder of XPOsoft. And before we get going further, a quick reminder on the webinar. We are just going to mute all of you guys, and and we request everyone to ask questions, and feel free to drop in the control panel on the left hand side, and whenever possible, Phil will address the questions. And we also have a session at the end of the slides so that he will talk about and address all your questions. About moving on to the Phil Liu, he is the distinguished speaker, and he has, uh, as a respected leader with a deep passion for software quality and user experience. His specialties include software quality process, evaluation, measurement, and improvement. Apart from his core expertise, he is passionate about his family, cycling, and travel. Um, I'm like you. I'm also eager to hear more from Phil on his insights. Phil, the platform is yours.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the webinar. Thanks for the introduction, Karthik. It's great to be here, and good evening, good afternoon, good morning to whoever is here in the room today. As mentioned, I'm the CEO and founder of XPOsoft, and we are a software testing services company. And TestRay asked me to provide some good knowledge and content on optimizing Jira for test management with a term that we've coined test orchestration, which is really bringing together the pieces of an orchestra, right? You have the string section and so on at the right time to play the right tunes, and in order to make test management as smooth as possible. So let me move on here, and I'll get into some of the challenges that we all know today. And as we know, test data management is a big issue. TDM, especially when you have very complex environments in large companies. We just got done working in a bank, and you can imagine how difficult the environment management and the test data management is in a bank with all of the different security issues and different databases and different levels of permissions and so on. So depending on the organization, you may have different types of problems or challenges in your organization, and depending on your size as well as maturity. Here's just a little tidbit of information from Software Testing Genius that 50% of organizations deal with slow or inefficient test execution, resulting in missed deadlines and basically bad quality, and with testers getting blamed for a lot of the bad quality. And I'm sure this is not a new thing if you're in the QA field in terms of having poor quality and possibly taking the rap for it. And so we know that a lot of these things come from some key issues, like number 3 there, test prioritization and coverage, really trying to understand what is the best area to put your effort and when, right? So depending on how much time you have, I mean, there's all kinds of algorithms and people that'll claim that their testing method works the best. And then, of course, there's always resource availability issues, whether it be environments being available or people that are knowledgeable to configure the environments, as well as dependencies between different modules and different third-party plugins that you may have to use, or third-party data sources to configure in your testing. And all of these things really create a lot of complexity that didn't exist, say, 5 or 10 years ago, when things were not all spread all over the cloud, right? So there's a lot of challenges, some of them new and some of them old. Some of the problems that we have, that we come across, and it's really all the way from the beginning, where it comes from user stories that are unclear. Maybe they're lacking information, and most of all, they're not even testable. People don't know how to write acceptance criteria, and if you can't write good acceptance criteria, then that leads to bad, poor test cases. And sometimes QA or testers might not be good at writing tests, whether they be incomplete, not cover all the options, or be inefficient, repetitive. And then I think one of the most critical ones is test cases not being organized and not reusable. So we end up with a lot of duplicate test cases or duplicate test scenarios that have quite a bit of overlap. And so that wastes a lot of our time. And then results is a big one, right? So management wants more than just pass or fail or did not execute. And they want to go deeper, and we need to really understand what management wants and how we can provide information for them to make decisions. So if any of y'all want to possibly chat and give us some of the problems that you have that are major problems as we go on, that would be great. I'm sure that you have other problems as well. The next slide is really kind of summarizes some of what I said, but also adds some good information here in terms of skills, right? So testers these days are not just manual testers, button pushers, but I think one of the most important skills that people need is domain knowledge for testing the software that they're working in. So if you're testing accounting software, then you really have to know a lot about accounting in order to test accounting software. You just can't be a button pusher, because if you do that, then you can't write really good test cases. And so not only that, you really have to understand the user stories very deeply in order to give feedback that the user stories may be incomplete, right? And testers also have to have knowledge about working in different test environments, configuring databases, all kinds of getting access to different data from different places and plugins and so on. And all of these things are very, very difficult to get coordinated at the right time, which is why we use the analogy of an orchestra in terms of being able to call in the right pieces at the right time and then be able to execute testing in an effective manner. And if you can execute the testing, of course, then well, like I said, there's the analysis and the reporting. So if you can't really show any value with your reporting and your analysis, then you might as well just stay home. So in summary, what we call test orchestration, or the term that we've used, test orchestration, is for the process of managing the quality activities in the dev lifecycle, which to me means getting the right people in the right place at the right time and having the right tools to get stuff done, right? You don't show up on a job site as a carpenter and not have a good hammer. So it's important for us as testers or QA to really understand tools very deeply and know how to use them correctly and in the right instances and configuring them correctly, using the right options and so on. And so today, The title of the webinar is Unlock Test Orchestration in Jira for Faster Test Execution. I'm going to be showing you some of the stuff that we use Jira for with our clients. And this is the reason that TestRay wanted us to come in and talk today, was that not only do we use TestRay, we use a lot of different plugins to help us optimize Jira for our clients. And so let's talk a little bit more about what test orchestration involves. So test orchestration involves, like I said, the reporting and analysis, but also involves the integration with other parts of the organization, whether it be pulling in data from different sources, working with DevOps, or managing all the environments. Of course, there's the test execution part, but a lot of folks don't really think too much about the test planning and the test automation. Now, we have a lot of teams maybe working on test automation, and we have people writing test cases and planning out test runs and so on. But sometimes test automation is separate from the manual testing group. So there's some overlap, as well as some parts that end up not being covered because they're not working together as a team. I don't know if any of you have had this happen before, but I've seen it many times where you have test automation testers that are writing code that is nothing close to what the manual folks are doing. And maybe it shouldn't be, but they're so far apart and they don't really understand what each other is doing. Like I said, if you want to add some questions in the chat, we'll take them right away and try to integrate them into the presentation today. So here's some best practices for test orchestration. First of all, we need clear objectives, right? So, and these objectives need to be a little bit more defined than just we want higher quality, right? So I've seen some of the executive management come down and say, oh, we want 100% automation. Well, and it's hard to convince them that 100% automation is not the right thing to do. But as testers, we know that it's not. So the question is, how can you convince management where to automate and where not to automate? And automate selectively, not first. The second thing, the other things are on the top right there, are getting the right tools, standardizing the test environment, and implementing continuous integration. Those are key elements of test orchestration. One area that's overlooked, and I just mentioned that in terms of test automation, along with manual testers, having them work close together to understand what each other is doing, and using that close collaboration and working together to iterate and improve. And not only working together in our own QA group, but working with the developers very, very closely to make sure that the requirements are understood clearly, and then being able to execute in parallel mode so that we're not executing serially, and being able to monitor and analyze test results. So, a lot of our clients, they purchase Jira, and they think that it's really going to solve a lot of their problems, and it will, but it's not going to solve a lot of problems out of the box. And there are quite a few limitations on it. One of the good things about Jira is that it's very, very configurable. But that's also one of the bad things about Jira. It's so configurable that the learning curve, if you want to do more than just use a standard configuration, the learning curve is quite steep. It takes a lot of time to really optimize it very well. And it can be quite complex. And if you want to get some of the good reporting and dashboards or integration with other tools and customize workflows and so on and so on, you really have to pretty much have a Jira expert come in and help you. It's pretty difficult unless you really dig deep into Jira to really configure it correctly, especially for test management, because Jira is not really built for testing. It's built as an issue management system. So here is some of the things that we can do with Jira, but it's not natively made for this. And that's why there are so many plugins that Jira works with for test management. TestRay is one of them, and that's what I'm here working with TestRay today for the webinar, and we've also worked with them on several projects in implementing TestRay. But we've also worked with many organizations here on this in this little chart here in different types of Jira plugins that do test management. And the one that you choose has to do with, the features that you want, the pricing model you want, and so on. TestRay is just one of them. There are many others, and some of them are mentioned here. There's probably dozens of test management plugins that integrate with Jira. So if you need some help with that, that's one of the things that we can do with you if you need us to. So benefits of test orchestration with Jira. I think I mentioned earlier this kind of motto that I have in terms of optimizing effectiveness is doing the right thing at the right time with the right people. So if you can do all these things, then you can get that improved efficiency, better test coverage, improved collaboration, and reduce costs. So, I mean, when you think about it, the right people means many different things. It could mean people with the right skills, right? But it also means really thinking about the makeup of your team at a more emotional level. So thinking about introverts and extroverts, you can't have all extroverts working together because it's just not going to work. People are going to be talking over each other and not listening. And so that is something that is part of the equation of right people, not just, oh, we need somebody that knows, Selenium or something like that. Now I'm going to dig into how we do it, right? So we worked with many different companies, as I mentioned before, and I'm just going to show you some slides or some screenshots of how we worked with these companies and we're able to use a test management tool. And in this case, it's TestRay. But like I said, we've used many other tools or plugins for Jira, and we're able to get a 50% reduction in test time for regression. So that's significant. When a company takes their regression test time down by half, that's an incredible gain. Does anybody have any questions? Please feel free to ask if you need to. Okay, so here's how we do it. All right, so the first thing really, the first concept is to tie together everything so that it's integrated together. And you can see on this slide here at the top, this is a screenshot where we're testing a bank. I think I mentioned the bank earlier in terms of, you can see at the top is the description of the requirement, and then below is the actual requirements along with the development tasks associated with that requirement. And then you have below that test cases. And so the whole point is being able to see everything on one screen that is related together. So let me go on and show you a little bit more detail here. As you can see at the top, there's the requirements, which have the creating a child for a requirement, linking a child to a requirement, and also having a tree for the requirement. In this case, we have the requirement of a credit card validation, and underneath that requirement, we have two development tasks, bank info validation and card info validation. Now you can also see that for this particular requirement with the two development tasks, we have these 4 test cases related to that. And so the 4 test cases, FRS 14 through 17, and then So you can see how all this is working together, right? And then on the right, let me show the next screen. On the right, oops, let me go back, sorry. On the right, you can see the defects that are associated with these test cases and the status. So you can see that to do means they're working on it, fixing it, done and in progress. You can see what's going on with those defects that are associated with these test cases, that are associated with these development tasks, that are associated with that particular requirement of purchasing a ticket. Now you can see here that this particular test case, when you drill down into the test case, you can see the test case, the test steps associated with that test case. You can also see the person that did the test case, and you can see the requirement that that's associated with and the development tasks that are in progress for that particular test case. The next thing is, like I mentioned, tying everything together, right? So we have a defect, but we want to see everything that's related to that defect, right? So we have, of course, we have reproduction steps. We have the test cases that are related to that defect, that generate that defect, and we have the people that are associated with that defect. So in this case, we have the person that reported the defect, as well as the assignee, the one that's supposed to be working on fixing the defect. I've only got 7 minutes here. I'm going to try to get going. Okay, so the next part of when we talked about optimizing and being able to execute tests faster and in parallel rather than serial, you just need to have your test plan. And so having test plans enables you to have different rounds of environments, right? And different builds, and enables you to track all of your results in one place. So how many people here have difficulty tracking builds and environments? Of course, because you don't want to test all builds with all environments, right? And so most people do it in a spreadsheet, and this can be inefficient. We think it's better, it's easier to see all in one place with a test management plugin as part of Jira. This kind of shows something related. It digs down into this particular round of testing with Firefox, just to show you the more details on this particular round with Firefox, where we executed these test cases here associated with that requirement. And lastly, you want to have a trace, what people like to see, what management likes to see, and what business analysts like to see is what they call a traceability matrix, right? You want to see for all the way from the requirement to the test case to the functionality that's being tested, as well as the test results. So colors representing, blocked or not started yet, passed, in progress. These are the kind of things that management wants to see all in one place for any particular requirement. And then one of the most valuable things about a test management plugin is, like I was saying, being able to integrate manual testing and automated testing to see where the overlap is, where the overlap should be, and where it should not be. And so you can see here that we're able to separate out the automated test cases, but we're able to see everything in the same place. And here we have manual and automated test cases. We can actually even kick off these test cases automatically with Jenkins through integrating the test management plugin with our CI/CD. So like I was saying before, we want to show value as QA. We want to show value. We need to show more than just pass or fail. And so we need to get down and really understand where the defects are, what requirements are generating the defects. Maybe we need to go back to the drawing board and work with the business analysts in getting better requirements. Maybe we need to work on, if we see that certain manual test cases are taking too long, maybe we need to think about prioritizing those for automation. And of course, management always wants to know, when are we done testing, right? as well as what's my coverage? That's one of the typical questions, and we need to be able to answer that. And sometimes that can be answered with pass fail, but most of the times it can't. So here's an example here of reporting on a requirement. So you can see that we were able to report on these requirements here, and it shows what's passed, what's failed, what's blocked. And after you dig down and you click on one of those those graphs, you can see the particular ones, the particular requirements and test cases that were failed or blocked and so on based on that requirement. This just gives you a little bit more detail in terms of the requirements and all of their statuses and what platforms or test cycles they were run on. So this gives you an idea of the level of detail. This particular one is for automated. You can see there's a run ID there, which tells me that it's an automated run that was kicked off by Jenkins and lets me know what the status of it is. The other thing we want to know is how our people are doing. And this, we don't want to encourage, of course, number of tests run or number of defects found, but it does give us a good idea of who's doing some work, right? And we can also break this down by requirement, because we know that some requirements or test cases are harder to run or take more time than others. So you can see the level of detail that you can get to with a test management plugin that enables you to really dig down and get information, which you wouldn't get with just a standard Jira configuration out of the box. Here's another example of results that you can get per feature in Jira, and you can do this by breaking down and configuring your components correctly in Jira. Let's see. Well, we're coming down to the end here. Right on time. Okay. So I just wanted to kind of summarize in terms of, if you're a software tester or QA person and you really need to, there's just never enough time, right? And so what we need to do is organize our testing the best way possible. I hope that what you've seen today kind of demonstrates how you can do this, not only with Jira, but with a good test management plugin and having a good configuration for your test management plugin that integrates throughout, tying all of your requirements, user stories directly with test cases and acceptance criteria. And then when those test cases organized into different runs with different builds on different platforms so that you can have your test runs organized, and then being able to see the test runs along with the test cases that are executed for those test runs, and then being able to map those test cases to defects as well as defects back into the requirements, so you can get a good idea of root cause analysis on your defects and be able to go back and improve on an iterative basis. And just a 3-point summary here, it all starts with good requirements, testable requirements. Whether you want to write, agile user stories, or if you want to write, we used to have these long requirement specs. And then we have to have good connection and integration between all of our test artifacts, as well as our development, and starting from user stories to tasks and development, test cases based on that development, automated versus manual, and being able to understand how they work together, the defects that are generated from the test cases, and then tying all that back into requirements. And then lastly, of course, I hope that you've gotten a good idea of how to generate good reports other than pass fail, to really understand deeply how you can improve your not only your testing but your whole development process. So I think that's taken us a whole half hour here. I know I've talked really fast, but that's the end of today, and thank you very much. Does anybody have any questions that they'd like to ask? Feel free, or you see my contact information there. You see the the folks at TestRay that sponsored the webinar. You will get slides as well as the recording from today. I hope that you've enjoyed it. I don't see any questions coming in. So I guess we'll end the webinar and have a good rest of your day and a good weekend. So thank you very much, everyone. I see. Is there a question there?
Yeah, I just got one question from one of the resident named Daniel. This question was, what are the future trends in test orchestration and how it will evolve over the years?
Yeah, that's a good one. And so, everybody's talking about AI, right? And we at XPOsoft, we've been working on using AI in our services that we provide to our clients. And I would say that probably the biggest area that AI is just really another, I would call it another layer or another type of automation. And so what we um, see it doing for us is helping us to write test cases and better requirements. But based on our research and some of the testing that we've done, it can do that, right? But it's still going to require human intervention to look at these and sometimes throw away some test cases. I think that it will improve, right? Um, so that's one area. The other area that we see that is really taking off is the analysis of data, right? So analyzing test results data as well as generating test data is also an area that uh, that AI can help us a lot in. But when you think about it, people are afraid that this is going to take away testers' jobs, and I think it will take away jobs at lower level manual testers. They're always threatened in some way, but the way that manual testers, well, lower level manual testers that just press buttons, they're going to go away. Okay. But senior level testers, whether they are able to really look at the output of AI and be able to discern what is good and what is not, and throw away, of course, what they need to, as well as adapt and modify what they need to, and then be able to judge whether something is good as is out of AI, whether it be data that's generated for test data or it is test cases that are generated by AI. So those types of people that are senior enough to really understand that, they're going to be very, very valuable. And then the other, if you're a manual tester and you're not into automation, your experience in the domain that you're testing is going to be more and more valuable, because being able to ascertain whether or not some stuff being generated by AI is reasonable is going to be incredibly valuable. So I think that's where I see that test orchestration is going in terms of the people and the technology. I think I've answered the question. I hope that one person, Esmail, asked for the page to be bigger. I'm sorry about that, but I did the best I can.
All right. All right. Thank you so much, Phil. I really enjoyed the session. I'm sure our audience would have also enjoyed. And if you have any questions, please feel free to drop in a line and we'll be more than happy to answer that. Thank you once again for joining.
Thank you,
Have a
everyone.
good day.